What is going on, guys? Welcome to MushLoven. I'm your host Dayton. Some of you guys may know me as Dr. Autoflower. I'm here in my grow room because I feel this is a good transition from my growing channel to my new mushroom channel. In this video we're going to discuss what all we're going to be doing on this channel, and we're going to get into some of my past experiences with mushrooms and just give you guys kind of like a rundown where I'm coming from, where my journey began and where I am now. So the reason why I wanted to start this channel is pretty much for educational purposes, to document some of the knowledge I know, what I've picked up over the years. Maybe my experiences can help people out there, because the mushroom movement is growing pretty big and pretty fast. Over the last 2 years, I've seen so many news stories about mushrooms being tested in universities, colleges, using them in therapy for many disorders such as depression, anxiety issues, addiction, OCD, all kinds of stuff. And I see that with the normalization and the legalization of mushrooms in the US and Canada, I feel that we just need more information out there. There's so many people I see on forums and stuff who are getting into bad situations because they're not really doing any research, they're not learning about it beforehand, and people are getting a little ridiculous with showing off how much they can take and stuff like that, which is, I believe, a really terrible idea. It can lead to really bad things. So I think education is very important, and I feel like I have useful information that can get out there and help people. So if this is a channel you'd like to follow along, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below. Hit that bell notification button too, so you get notified when my new videos go up. And make sure you hit the like button. Really helps a lot with the videos and getting the algorithm going. So I really would appreciate it, guys. So in this channel, we're going to talk about like important things to know when you're going to be trying these medicines. We'll be talking about my experiences personally, and we're looking at bringing on more people who are even more knowledgeable than me about this subject, and doing some podcasting and stuff, and really just build this channel into a source of information. One thing that helps me kind of stand out, I may not be the most articulate person on this subject matter, but I feel like my strengths are kind of more how I see patterns and how I can like kind of break things down a little bit different than other people. So that's where I'm coming from with this channel. I want this to be a source of information for people who are new, who don't really know much about it, and don't really know where to look for this information. Because it can be all over the place. From what I've learned all over the years, it's been from forums, YouTubers, podcasts, and all that kind of stuff. I want to combine it all together in one easy spot where people can find it all and learn, and hopefully make their mushroom experience a more safer one. So now that we got that out of the way, let's get into my past experiences, where I began with mushrooms and where I am now. Now, I'd like to start this off by saying I was a teenager when I started, but I don't recommend doing that. When you're young, your brain's still developing, so I feel that it is most likely better to wait until you're in your mid-20s. And that is because when you're young, you don't really have the respect for the mushrooms, and you're also kind of ignorant to how it all works, what could possibly happen. I had a very bad experience when I believe I was 17 and a half, 18, something like that, and I didn't touch it for years after. And of course, it all could have been avoided with respecting the mushrooms more, having a much better set and setting, which is something we'll get into a lot on this channel. Set and setting is super, super important. But let's get into where I began. So my first experience ever like encountering it was, I believe, when I was like 15 or 16. Some of my friends had a little bit like a powder, like a tiny amount, probably like 0.5 of a G or 0.6 or something like that, not much at all. And they said, okay, you can have this, and but the thing is you have to take it right now, right here. So I was like, yeah, whatever. So I didn't think it was much big a deal, didn't think anything of it, took it, went home, had some dinner, and just sat at the computer, and just everything was kind of glowy, but it wasn't too interesting at all. I was like, yeah, it's okay, but I was like, I rather prefer smoking bud, so I didn't really think too much of it until later on, trying it with a couple of my friends, where we tried it down by the river. We were doing some fishing and stuff. We never really got into much. It was always like one piece, so we never even weighed our stuff. So that is another very important thing. If you're going to be trying mushrooms, I highly recommend getting a scale to know exactly what you're taking. because it is super important to know exactly how much you're taking. And I always say if you got money for the mushrooms, then you definitely have money for a $10, $15 scale from Amazon. So I tried it a couple times with friends, just laughing our heads off and you know, having a good time, looking at the walls kind of warping and melting and stuff, but never nothing really too intense. But it was like the third time I tried it, and I think I was alone. I wanted to try a alone trip. And it wasn't too much, I don't believe, but this is when I learned my body pretty much rejects it, and that's something to know. When you're eating it sometimes, certain people, bodies pretty much reject it. Like, I remember I ate it, 5 minutes later I just projectile vomited, just wow, like something out of The Exorcist, and there it went all out of my stomach. And I was like, well, that was a waste. Some people have zero issue at all. They don't mind the taste or anything. As soon as that taste hits my tongue, if I have to chew on it, I just want to just blow chunks everywhere. And there are definitely people like that. I've heard of many people like that. So after that, we started to mix it with chocolate, like have a bite of chocolate, you know, bite of the mush, and then that seemed to work back then. So I got a few experiences here and there with friends, usually having a pretty good time, usually laughing our heads off and not really, you know, having any issues or anything. But the first time I actually had an issue or like a troubled trip or whatever, it wasn't like a bad trip or anything, but I learned that you really don't want to be around a bunch of people. So like, especially at a party, especially if people are drinking, that can really put you in a bad vibe, weird vibe. I remember it was a bunch of us, bunch of our friends, and we were all trying it, and there was a lot of newbies who were trying it for the first time. And one of the girls tried it, and she started freaking out, even though she just had a small amount. She started freaking out saying, "Get out of my bubble! No one come in my bubble! Ah!" And like kind of going off and just like not calming down. And it really put me in a bad vibe, and like I just didn't want to be around people. So I was just like, I'm going home, see you guys. And yeah, that's when I started learning it can be, you know, not so good when you have random people coming over or people drinking around you. This is not really something you want to just do at a random party with drunk people all around. And I definitely had experience like that before. I remember we were houseboating on a big lake, and we had a houseboat to all our friends, and I decided that day that I want to take some mush and just enjoy and go up on top and sit in the hot tub and just enjoy the views. And at first it was going amazing. It was like something out of the Lord of the Rings. I don't know, it was like very mystical and everything. The way the forests and like lake houses were passing by, I was pretty amazed. And I was literally seeing like elvish, like Lord of the Rings writing all over the hot tub. And I was like, what is this? Oh my God. And it was just pretty wild. And then all of a sudden, our boat starts going to the store on the lake. I'm trying to paint you guys a picture here, but I'm on top of this houseboat by myself, and it's this big lake store floating on the water. And at the very top, that was pretty much the same level as me, there's a bunch of people standing there and just staring at me. And just staring and staring. And that's when everything started going like, uh-oh, I don't feel good. Like, these people are just staring at me. And that's another perfect example of bringing energy in, and it's kind of messing with yours. And like, that's why set and setting is so important. And that's why I don't recommend doing it when you're going on parties or like big trips and stuff like that. It can be, you know, it can be a little sketchy. And I'll always remember this. I'm sitting there like kind of freaking out that all these people are staring at me, and one of my friends runs up and says, "Hey, come on down, we're taking pictures with little sailor hats on." And I'm like, okay. So I come down there and I'm starting to not feel good, and I put on this little sailor hat and take this picture. I took one picture, and I was just like, oh, nope. And I just start running for the back of the houseboat, just projectile vomiting, hold it all in, and then I get to the back and psh, and yeah. Then I kind of learned it's you really gotta pick your situations. There's only one kind of situation where there's large groups of people that I had an amazing time, and that would be music festivals where everyone else is already tripping. Then everyone is already on the same vibe, and it didn't really affect me ever. So that is the difference with that. So I'll get into one of my last young experiences I had when I was 17, 18. This is where I kind of got brave, and my buddy was over. So I was like, let's do some mush today, and we're gonna watch Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. Terrible, terrible, terrible idea. Of course for the movie, because it's a kind of bad vibe movie, and I wouldn't recommend watching it, but also when I took them, my buddy was like, okay, I'm gonna take it a little bit later. So we go ATVing around and just like having some fun before they kick in. And I'm like, are you taking yours? And he's like, no, I'm deciding I'm going home. And I'm like, okay. And I already took 3.5, which is an eighth. And I'm like, okay, I guess I'm doing it by myself. I go back into my room, I put on Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, and I proceed to pretty much lose my mind. Now I'll tell you the gist of what happened here. Maybe I'll get in more into it in another video. But pretty much the gist of what happened was I didn't realize how strong these mushrooms were. I thought I built up a tolerance already, but I guess not, and they must have been very strong because this 3.5 Gs really took me for a ride. I put on Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, and there's a part in the movie where a dwarf brings out a phone on a plate in a restaurant. And I remember this so vividly that I'm watching, and nothing's really getting wild with my visuals or anything, but I could hear every single individual conversation at once, very loudly for all of a sudden. I'm like, whoa, this is weird. I've never had auditory hallucinations like that. And it was like someone just cranked the volume on my ears inside my head. And I was like, whoa, what's going on? And I got the fear, as they say in the movie. I got the fear, and I was like, uh-oh, nope, took too much. So I kind of freaked out, and I turned off the movie, and I could still hear the conversations. And I was like, oh no, I took too much. What do I do? So I was like, I'm gonna go to bed. I'm gonna try to sleep it off. I'm just gonna lay in bed and it's gonna go away. And it proceeded to get much worse, where at first it was multiple conversations and stuff, which is pretty bad, but it turned into literally garbled nonsense. I could do an example of it. It's like, and it's like faster and slower and higher pitched, and like it just kept going and going for like a good hour and a half, and I was just like, oh no, I took too much. At least I knew what reality was, kinda, so I knew I had took too much. But if I had taken more, maybe I wouldn't even know what reality was, and I would just like completely have lost myself for a while. But the story kind of has a funny ending, and I vividly remembered this, that I was like, okay, going to bed, put the blanket on me, and I proceeded to get lost, literally lost in my blanket over me for about a good hour. And luckily after about hour and a half, the voices went away, and I was like, okay. But I literally was stuck in my blanket, and I don't know what I was doing. I must have been like spinning that thing around, just spinning and spinning. And eventually I found my way out. After that, I pretty much swore off mush, and I was just like, nope, it's not for me. I don't need to go through that again. It was very traumatic, and it wasn't until, I believe, 9-10 years later until I finally tried it again, which I had an amazing experience with at music festivals, being an adult, not a child pretty much. So I was much more respectful with mush. You really have to treat it with respect, or it can just give you a psychological bitch slap. But in the last, I believe, 5-6 months or so, I've started using it medically for my anxiety, for my depression, for creativeness help, and for all around mental wellness. I now use set and setting as a very important tool to help me guide my way through the process. I set my intentions, I try to show as much respect to it as I can, and the experiences now are just much better as an adult. So that's kind of my backstory of how I got into it, but I never learned about the medical benefits just until like 2 years ago. And with the whole global thing going on right now, mental health seems to be a very important topic and issue. So yeah, that's kind of where I am now. We'll end it here so we can save some of these stories for next time. Thank you all for watching. Until next time, peace out and catch you guys later.